Amy, and this is the Half Caff podcast, where we'll talk about knitting and crochet. I'm coming to you from the Pacific Northwest. I'm looking out my window right now, and it is one of those classic gloomy, windy, rainy days. So I've moved inside. I've been recording in my backyard all summer, but alas, those days are ended for at least a little while. This is the second time I'm recording this podcast, actually. The first time I recorded it when I was on a little just me getaway, and I went over Halloween weekend. So a lot of the local stuff I have and the footage I have and the things that I saw were very Halloween centric. People like having pumpkin races and walking around in costume and stuff. So that was sort of a happy accident and was really cool. So I've got some footage of that to show you, but I expected to record my podcast there too. And I brought all my stuff to do so, except the lights. And the light was okay, but it was still pretty dark when I recorded the podcast there. And I don't know, I just wasn't in the right headspace, and it was very echoey, even with my mic on. So I'm trying it again now that I'm in a different space and have made this lovely backdrop for trying out for the winter months. And speaking of winter, summer, anytime really is the best time for coffee. So today's mug is actually, rather plain, but I really like it. It just says mocha on it, which is my favorite beverage to consume. And I got this along with a brown one that's identical, like a chocolate brown one that says latte on it. And, they're just cute. I got them from Starbucks. They're not, there's not really a special story, except that I really, really like them because they are the Half Caff colors. So my colors are this kind of like sea green blue, and a really warm chocolate brown. So you may recognize this because I use it to stage photos. So there you have it. So I have several things to show you, finished objects as well as works in progress. And I have even more to show you because I'm refilming this podcast and have made some more things since then. So it's an extravaganza. So as I like to most of the time, if I can, I will start with what I'm wearing. I'm not going to try to stand up and knock the camera over and do all those wonderful things. So I'm just going to insert some footage here of me showing you my Alaska sweater. This is one of my most prized finished objects. It took so long, but I was possibly entirely monogamous on it. I've had a rough couple of months, just emotionally, life-wise speaking. And so when that happens, I will definitely still knit, or rain or shine, happy or sad. But I don't have a lot of headspace to kind of, I guess, think creatively. So when I'm thinking very creatively, I often want to hop from project to project or cast on something new that catches my eye. And so that kind of wasn't happening. Really, I was just sort of focused on whatever I had in front of me. And so I didn't start a lot of new projects. Now, don't get me wrong, I have a lot of whips that still need to be rescued. And I actually did pull a couple out and finish them. But when I was working on this sweater, I pretty much only did that because that's just kind of what I pulled out every time. So I didn't really have to think about it. That said, this is not a sweater necessarily that you don't have to think about, especially because I steeked it and I cut it down the center into a cardigan. And for the most part, that's pretty much my first steek. When I made the frog and toad pattern, you're supposed to cut a couple of your stitches so that you can sew in the eyeballs. And I guess that's, kind of technically a steek. I guess it's not. A steek is actually the extra stitches that you put in with the intention of cutting them, is my understanding. So, but anyway, I have cut my knitting before, I guess is the idea. But this was the first time that I cut any significant amount of it, and not because I had made an error. So I think it worked out really well. I've been wearing this sweater a lot. I'm probably going to end up taking it off because it's very warm with all the lights on inside. But this, I've been wearing it a lot, and there's no, there hasn't been a concern about it unraveling or anything like that. There's color work at the bottom. I did a crochet steek. So give you a little sneak peek of the steek. It's the white, and I did that so that I'd be able to see it because while I was working with it, but that I knew it wouldn't really show. And then I did do some of the kind of like whip stitch, or just barely, not whip stitch because I didn't go all the way through, but just barely kind of tacking it down there. And that, sorry, I'm bashing my mic. And that seemed to work really well. When I cut through the color work at the bottom, there was a little bit of it. I think it might have been okay, but it did feel like a couple of like little parts were loose and unraveled, like where I had cut through floats and things like that. So in those parts, I kind of just tacked them down a little bit more, or I actually tied a couple together just to make sure that it was okay. And so again, so far so good. This is probably one of the best fitting sweaters that I've made. It is the first cardigan that I've made for myself. Knitting in the round is just so convenient. So I guess I don't mind purling. I hate the switching, the knit to purl. So ribbing is always annoying. So I guess I could just purl across and do work a flat cardigan. But I thought, let's try it. So it worked out really well. It is fun to do. I'm sure I'll be doing one again. I will try to not use a superwash yarn next time just to be extra safe. But this yarn is kind of thick, and my sewing machine is just your basic beginner. So I didn't want to test that and snag my knitting or anything while I was doing to do a machine steek. So that's why I just did the crochet steek. So this is the Alaska sweater by Camille Descoteaux. It is a great pattern. I would definitely make this again, maybe again, even as a pullover. I just knew that I intended to do it as a cardigan from the outset, but both work. I really love the design, and I've had it on my list for a while. Her initial photos are where she did purple, and it kind of looked like it faded a little bit, which I love. It gives me the impression of like dawn over the trees and that kind of thing. So I didn't do that with this. I just did the green and the gray. I don't know why, but a black would have been a better contrast, but for some reason I just didn't want to do all the way black. So I chose the darkest gray I could. And I think let me show you the sleeve here. How about like that? I think that contrast is really good in the, strong light, but I would say it's a lot more subtle just in real life. My husband assures me it does look like trees, but I don't know. Anyway, I do like it. Probably could have done with a little bit more contrast. The yarns I used were both Berocco. They were 100% wool, I believe. One was this green was Rosemary. It's the Ultra Wool DK. It's a DK sweater. And the charcoal is Berocco Vintage DK. So this sweater, like most things we all knit, took forever. But especially because of all the not only the steeking planning, or, the steeking executing, I'd say, but also everything you have to do after that to finish the cardigan. I mean, so I had to add all the buttons and kind of measure out where they were going to go. Luckily, I had these in my stash, and they're simple and nice, serviceable, but you have to plan out, pick up the stitches in the way that you want, how long the ribbing needs to be on each side, and make sure it lays nice and flat. Plan for the buttonholes and which side you're going to do it, and then add the buttons on the other side. Of course, after you steek, before you steek, you have to actually create whatever you want to do to secure the stitches, if you're going to do that. And again, in superwash, I was pretty sure I was going to do that. Even in non-superwash, I would have done that just to be safe. So secure all the stitches with the crochet steek, and then, or with the crochet. Yeah, and then cut the steek, fold it back, tack it down, finish off any of the loose ends. So a sweater takes a long time anyway. It's long sleeves, and I made them even kind of a little bit longer to make sure that they all the way came down. I lengthened the sweater more than in the pattern because I pretty much always do that. But I have noticed that some of the sweaters that I've made have ended up being a little longer than I prefer, which, surprised me, because I would think that I'd want them a certain length and kind of to cover. But if it gets too long, it's actually no good. it'll sit in your lap and fold up. You know, the rim will fold up and that kind of thing. So I was trying to be really mindful about how long I made this, but I still did lengthen it from the pattern. So again, just very time consuming, but absolutely worth it. And having said that, I'm taking it off because it's toasty. And then maybe I can show you a little bit closer the steek that went all the way down. And I don't know, can I find any? So there's the floats for the color work at the bottom. Let's see if I can find some of my tie-offs. Yeah. So see, there's my stitching. It's kind of sloppy down there, isn't there? But there's some of the tie-offs that I did because I was concerned that the color work was gonna unravel. So it's not that bad, but it is a little messy. I will say, I haven't blocked it yet, and that's unusual. Not that I love blocking, but you know, for me, I'm usually like, get it done so I can wear it, right? But I started wearing this right away anyway. And I think it's because I'm kind of not scared, reluctant to block it. Not because I don't think it would look lovely and it'll probably look even better, but because it looks really nice already as it is. And it's so heavy and I can't dry knits outside anymore, obviously. I may or may not ever get around to blocking it. Maybe I'll block it next summer. I don't know. So that's the Alaska sweater cardigan. Now, the next thing I want to show you is something that I literally was 100% monogamous on because it flew. Partly because, you know, you used chunky yarn and fat needles. Partly because the pattern repeat was just that perfect sweet spot, you know, where it's not too complicated. It's not too long. You can kind of get into it, but it changes it up enough for your interest. So that was fantastic. So, I had seen a sweater version of this pattern and decided long ago that I wanted to make it. And I think after just having come off the Alaska sweater, I wasn't ready to jump right into another, but I had ordered the wool for, or I had decided to order the wool for the next thing that I'm going to show you. And instead of getting the sweater quantity and doing the sweater, I last minute decided to do the shawl. I'd gotten into my head that the pattern might be complicated because I had read that you need to cast on and bind off. And for some reason in my head, I thought that that meant that within the pattern, you'd be casting off and, or casting on and binding off stitches over and over. Like, you know, how sometimes you can do if you need to, I don't know. Anyway, no, they were just saying that you need to know those skills to do this project, like the initial cast on and the bind off at the end. So anyway, I don't know how that got into my head, but I kind of put it off because I thought it was going to be complicated. Which that's not even complicated, but it just sounded a little fussy. Anyway, such silliness. So when I got to the pattern, I was happily delighted that it was pretty easy. And I think I only messed up a couple of times and caught it right away and fixed it. So that's pretty rare too. Anyway, so the sweater version I saw of this was, I think it's called the winter leaf sweater. I don't remember. But I made the shawl version, which I think came before. And this is the Golden October shawl. Of course, I'm not going to be able to show it all to you because you're just seeing layers and layers. So I will also put some footage in. This one is by the Knit Stitch, the pattern, and I used the Meri wool, which is what the pattern calls for. It's merino wool, 100%. It is a superwash. It's a chunky yarn from We Are Knitters, and this is the colorway Forest Green. I think it looks a little darker in the light, but it's actually, it's kind of like blowing all the yellow light everywhere, but it's actually a very rich, dark green. So it looks a little bit bluer on camera than it really is. Let me show you a close-up of the actual leaf. I'll kind of back up a bit. So it's basically all those leaves with the little lace eyelet detail all around it. And I always manage to mess up lace. So it's kind of one of my underdone things. I'll do it. And I do like to do it, but I just get so discouraged when you mess up because you can't really fob that. If you mess up in a lace pattern, it's usually very noticeable because it's trying to make a pattern with the spaces, right? So, yeah, I've given up or frogged a number of projects that had lace in it that were, either too complicated or I messed up and couldn't fix it or was tired of fixing it. So, but this one, yeah, it was great. No mess ups, that I didn't catch right away. And, yeah, I was really, really thrilled with that. So this shawl is really bouncy and pretty light considering how big it is. And it's just got, I think it was a garter stitch edge. Yeah. Really easy. It's a triangular shape. It's a shawl. And I do really like it. Was totally excited to wear it. And then when I put it on, I was like, this isn't my shawl. I don't know what happened. I'm sure the sweater pattern is, basically just as simple as far as the repeat stitch. I'm sure there's some complexity because of trying to shape it into a sweater rather than just a big triangle. I don't know. I haven't dove into that. So I think that I'm actually maybe not going to make the sweater like I had anticipated because this wool is not as, I'd want to make it in this one. I really like it. I could make it in something else, but I do really like how this drapes and everything. But I don't like how it would feel as a sweater. It wouldn't feel as sturdy. I don't know if that makes sense. I also don't like wearing sweaters that I have to wear something underneath, which is I think probably in the minority, but, where you like have a tank top and then the pattern out on the outside shows. I think with a leaf sweater, it would be okay because it's sort of an all over, pattern, but like where your tank top meets your skin and the tonal changes that show underneath like a lace yoke or something. I don't know. I just don't prefer it. Isn't that weird? It seems weird to me. Anyway, it seems fussy, but so I don't think I'd end up wearing it is my point, even though the sweater is gorgeous. It seemed like it'd be more thick and snuggly than I think it would end up being. It would end up being a little bit more light and breezy, which could actually be great. It's just not what I was looking for. So, but I'm happy I made the shawl. Really enjoyed making it, even though I don't think that I'm going to keep it because I just don't think I'm going to end up wearing it. I'm not a big shawl person. I'll tell you that. So I'm interested in making a shawl that I think is going to be kind of a go-to for me. I have one that I purchased a long time ago that I love. And even then I don't wear that a whole lot. But it's a long rectangular shawl. So I've got it onto my head that I want a long triangle, but maybe I'm wrong because this is a long triangle. I don't know what it is about this when I put it on. It just doesn't feel like me. I don't know if it's too lacy, if it's too long, if it's the triangle. I don't know what it is. But I'm going to keep looking for my perfect shawl. A lot of the ones by Fiber Tales, really interest me. I don't know if they're my bag or not, but I think in the future I'm going to try one of those. I have to show you something first. I was actually digging out a project that I have stored in a bin that I don't use very often just because I'm kind of running out of room. So I stuck it in that bin. And when I went to go get it, I found this. I used to make a ton of these little teacups, this one, or coffee cups, because this one happens to be a coffee cup with little whipped cream in it. I love this yarn. It's just a basic red heart, whatever, but it's this, right? Am I thinking of the right thing? Yeah. But it's got all these different chocolatey tones in it. So I always use it I used to actually use it for making cat butt coasters. because that was a thing. I don't know if you all remember that, especially you crocheters. This is Crochet. Anyway, getting off topic. So this, I love this yarn. It's just a red heart yarn, but it has all these nice little tones in it. Again, I don't know if you can see that. So I like to use it for coffee. I'll also use like a light brown, a really light brown for making tea. So I have made a ton of these. I think you can order them in my shop anytime you want, because I always love to whip one of these little guys out. But this is the first one I ever made. And he's my mascot. But he's a little wonky. He's my original mascot. So here's his, I kind of figured out a better way to do his handles so that it has a nicer shape. I think he's a little bit bigger than I normally make. He might be about the same size. He's a little bigger, but he would be bigger if I had fully stuffed him. But I think I might have used a correct hook, but I might have made the hook too big, and then I didn't stuff him I didn't stuff him as big as he should be to hold a nice shape. So I think if I had, you'd probably see the stuffing through, because I probably used too big of a hook. I'm not sure. I don't remember. It was a long time ago. But anyway, and then he's got his cute little face. And normally when I make the faces on these guys, I actually tend to make the eyes a little bit. This is a 6mm Amigurumi eye, safety eye, and I use a 9mm typically when I make them now. Yeah, so he's a little wonky, but he's well loved. Again, he's my original, and so I just had to show that. In case you didn't realize, because, HalfCaffCrochet does refer to coffee. Anyway, next finished object. When I recorded this podcast the first time, this was a work in progress, but since then I've finished it. So I have shown this to you once before, also when it was a work in progress, obviously. And now I can show it to you all fully finished. Because it was October, I really wanted to work on some Halloween project, or, Halloween-ish projects. And so I did a couple of those, not as many as I'd anticipated, but I think I have 3 to show you. Did I finish them all? One of them's almost finished. 2 of them are finished. So it gave me more time to show you all my Halloween knits in November. Anyway, so these are the Cat Nouveau mitts. I've shown them to you before. These are by Lattes and Llamas, by Jack of Lattes and Llamas. She's also called Jack Attacking, I think, on Instagram, on social media. She is kind of a prolific designer, especially of mitts and cowls, and I love her patterns. One of them is like, Kraken tentacles, like very HP Lovecraft. It's very soon. I'm going to do that one. Then the Cat Nouveau, mitts, which is that, kind of like that famous poster. She just has kind of like my aesthetic. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of her mitts. I can't remember if I've done any yet, ironically, because I've already purchased like 3 of her patterns. But I really like her. So what is this yarn? This is fingering weight, and 2 of these yarns are from Leading Men Fiber Arts. They've got a huge selection and a lot of great solids and tonals, so that's great for color work. So the black is Darkest Hour, and the purple is not theirs. And the kind of this tonal yellow is Look on the Bright Side. I have to look at my notes there. The purple is actually a Malabrigo sock yarn. It's called African Violet. And I got that purple for something else, but it ended up working really well for that. So those are them. And I just finished the right mitt recently. I don't know if I'm going to keep them. I might offer them in my shop because, like I said, they're a little snug, but that's how I like them. But I'd say they're even more snug than maybe I prefer them. Also, I don't wear a lot of fingerless mitts, so I don't keep most of the ones I make. I usually sell them. Really great pattern. Like I said, I really like Lattes and Llamas stuff, especially the stuff designed by Jack. Okay, might as well continue with the Halloween knits, or in this case, crochet. So the first three I've shown you are all knit. This is a crochet because it's an amigurumi. This is the Poison Apple. And that is by, I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but Fanny Toys. Obviously, I'll put everything down below and on the screen. And this is just stash yarn. Let's see. This is a worsted, I think, but you know what? This is a doubled up fingering because I just really thought the color was perfect. So I did a black apple with the green poison and then just a little brown stash yarn tip. And what you do is you make the little stem tip. You make the stem, and then when you sew it, you really like yank it down all the way through the body, and then pull it back up. Or maybe you don't pull it back up. I might have, but anyway, you can probably knot it down here. But that's what makes it kind of apple shape and sort of cave in like that. This is it's a little bit sloppy. Honestly, I think because the double fingering and then I changed hook size right here. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just kind of goofing around, but it's cute. I think it's good enough. I just think this pattern is so adorable. I'd probably make it again and stop making all my silly little errors. But this was fun to make, and it was cool to see how it came together. And not really long because again, it's just little apple size. So that is something I started, and then you're supposed to sew the drips down so that they hang right, and I just kind of delayed on that part. So that was also a work in progress that I just barely completed. So I'm wrapping up all the Halloween stuff. There is one more Halloween thing, but it's a work in progress, so I'll get to that in a minute. The next thing I just honestly cast on kind of on a whim. So there's two sweaters I've been thinking of making, and they are kid or baby sweaters. And I now know somebody in my life that's going to have a baby, but I didn't for a long time. And I still wanted to make it kind of because I do like making sweaters, but it is sort of hard when it takes so long to cover my adult body. And since I make a lot of stuff that I just sell in my shop, I figured, I can make whatever I want to. And if it's not for me, then I sell it. That's fine. So I have been thinking about these two sweaters. One of them is called Tree Line, and you can make an adult size or a kid size. It's just perfect and elegant, and I totally want to get to that one next. I just have to find the right yarn. But this one is called, why don't I show it to you? Because that's kind of the point. This one is not blocked yet. It is called the Bean and Olive Sweater. That's kind of blowing out, so it's a darker, there you go. You can see the lighter blue. When I put it up, all the yellow drains and it looks really dark blue, but it's actually kind of like this bright, let's fix it. It's actually kind of this bright, you can see it when I put it up there, this bright turquoise blue. Anyway, this is all acrylic. This is the 6 to 12 month size. And I made it acrylic on purpose for a couple of reasons. One, I already had the yarn in the right size. This is DK weight. And I definitely want to use up stash yarn, especially some of the kind of acrylic that I have sitting around from my amigurumi days. I still do amigurumi, but not nearly as much as I used to. So I want to use up that stash yarn. And so this was perfect to do that. So I am going to gift this to the person in my life who will be having a baby. I made the 6 to 12 month size because the baby's due in May. So hopefully this might even be too small by the time it gets cold enough to wear. I hope that's not the case. She lives in a climate that gets colder faster than mine. So hopefully it'll work out. Whatever. It's cute. I had fun making it. I'm not sure about the yoke, to be honest. I wonder if it's going to end up being too deep. And then it'll end up like, so what happens when you have some of you may know this already, but when you have a yoke that's too deep, meaning it comes like so far down before you split for the sleeves. Then when you raise your arms, you raise the whole, like the whole sweater comes up, which can be kind of annoying. I don't know that, young kids or babies are going to care about that. And I don't know if that's really the case because the proportions look weird because it's for a baby. And I haven't had a baby in my life for a really long time. So it's easy to forget just how tiny and what they're shaped like, right? So maybe it's fine. Either way, it's utterly adorable. So anyway, back to why I used acrylic. Number one, I used acrylic because, number two, I used acrylic because I had it and I wanted to use it up. But number one is that, baby stuff, you want to be able to wash it and you don't want to fuss over it. So I tend to always, if I make any baby stuff, which isn't that often, I tend to try and make it acrylic so that moms can, or dads can wash it easily in the washing machine without it shrinking or felting or whatever, and throw it in the dryer. So I have not done that yet for this one, but I intend to fully just, wash it and dry it. And with acrylic, it doesn't really block. What it will do, it may even out a little bit. I don't really think I have any issues with my tension in the color work so much, but it puckers here and there, or you'll get kind of a stitch here and there that's not smoothed. And that happens before you've blocked it. So the blocking does more than just size it. It makes it a nice little, looks a lot more finished, right? So I'll still do that, but not for sizing issues. When you block acrylic, it's really just for that kind of like niceness. It doesn't, the yarn doesn't typically like plump up like a wool would. And you don't really kind of stretch or resize it necessarily, because the way acrylic yarn is, it doesn't do that. So I won't block it for that, but it probably will get a little bit softer. This is pretty soft anyway. Some acrylic yarn, like if you get it, like Red Heart or Big Twist or whatever, isn't super soft and it will soften up in the washer and dryer. So kind of another reason to do that. I just keep wanting to show you the yoke because it's so cute. So anyway, this is the bean and olive sweater. I did it in DK weight acrylic, which is what's in my stash. It's the Premier Yarns Deborah Norville Everyday Baby. I don't remember the colorways because, again, this has been in my stash. I don't even know if the blue is discontinued. Hopefully it's not. But I know I bought up a bunch of it a while back because I was making Smurfs. Yes, I was. Amigurumi Smurfs. And this was the best color. So I don't like to do amigurumi in... I like to do amigurumi in worsted weight or Aran weight or something like that. But I got this for Smurfs because it was the perfect color. It was the best color I could find that matched. So, but then I didn't make Smurfs. So again, this is the bean and olive sweater. It is by Andrea Mowry. I made size 2, which is the 6 to 12 month size. And it was pretty quick, except what's weird is even baby sleeves take forever. Why do sleeves take forever? They just do. Anyway, but still a pretty quick. I did this in a couple of days, probably 3 days or so. If you watch Crazy Sock Ladies podcast, you might have seen this on here. It's got adult sizes as well. And she's making one for herself. And I think she made one for her niece, I want to say, for her birthday. Anyway, I was saying that I have some of this colorway left over because it was the perfect colorway for Smurfs when I was doing amigurumi, which I'm not anymore. So now I need to use it up. And this used not very much. So I still got plenty to use. And I'll think of something. Maybe I'll make another Smurf. I don't know. So now we're on to works in progress. And I want to show you, I'll start with the Halloween knit. It really wasn't. It's good for any time. Halloween, every day is Halloween, in my opinion. Thank you, Ministry. So I will start with what is called the Kraken cowl. I have been dying for this one. I saw it, I think probably at the beginning of October and was just dying for it. I even asked her if there's any way she'd release it early. And she said, well, no, because I'll be on my honeymoon. So I'll be busy. I was like, okay, that's a fair reason. So she is Yarn Obsessed Meri on Instagram. But what is she? She's Hunt Hand Knits. And this is the Kraken cowl. Hey, let's move that. So here's one whole full repeat so you can see it. It's basically a Kraken attacking a ship. I love it. I'm a huge H.P. Lovecraft fan. This is the second Kraken thing I've made, but I've got a third one planned. As I said, the Jack attacking mitts. I don't remember what they're called, but it basically looks like Kraken tentacles. Or, H.P. Lovecraft kind of tentacles. So that's just my thing. I love horror, and H.P. Lovecraft is big up there for me. So this just screamed at me and I had to make it right away. I was actually going to do a blue or a sea green background. You don't need to see me. I was actually going to do a blue or a sea green background, but, I had this perfect yarn in here. The black is just a worsted. Was this DK? Oh, the black is Everyday Baby again. I'm just using it up. That's one of my go-to casual yarns for DK. So that is an acrylic, but the kind of like the tan, beige, warm brown color, that is Woolen Vine Yarns. That is on her Smitten DK, and this is called Witchy Brew. And this was actually a mystery skein. Like I just purchased a mystery colorway, a surprise for Halloween, and this is what came, and it actually worked out really great. So I'm thrilled all the way around. So this is the color I had. I wanted more, like I said, I had that blue, the Smurf blue that I could use, but it's a flat color. And I wanted at least a tonal, if not some speckles for the background, especially because the black would stand out on its own. So I wanted more variation in the background. So that's why I chose this. This is actually really close to the sample colors. So I knew it would look really good. So this is, as I said, the Kraken cowl. It's by Hunt Hand Knits, using some Woolen Vine yarn and some Everyday Baby yarn in DK. It is a fun knit. I will say that it's got huge portions where you have to carry long floats for a long time, which isn't my favorite. It's not the worst ever, especially in a cowl. It's going to be fine. Not going to be worried about it cinching in or whatever. If you can see up close here, sometimes because I didn't space my floats well, as far as I ended up stacking them on top of each other, which I shouldn't. So sometimes you can see through it. Hopefully blocking will ease some of this puckering. I expect it will. But yeah, really, really cute. So here is my problem. You can see down here, you can choose. What's cool about this pattern is you have 6 decorative borders that you can choose too, which are really cool. And you can choose different sizes and stuff. Honestly, the sizing thing was a little bit confusing to me. There's like 4 different sizes and 2 different charts. Anyway, it felt a little bit confusing. It's not the biggest deal. Just pick whatever chart you want and do the stitch count. And I'm not really worried about sizes. It's a cowl. I tend to make the smallest one because I like cowls that fit closer around my neck rather than big drapey, cowls. You can use a scarf for that. So I use the smallest one, but you can choose from 6 decorative borders, and that's really cool. So I chose this one. And as you can see, it kind of, makes this triangular little kind of flower bump. Here's where I screwed up. I've done 4 of like the 7 or 8 rows, or maybe 6, 7, something like that, of the border, the matching border, and I did it wrong. So I've started it here, and you can see, but those little points are supposed to go in, and they're going to end up being up, and that's wrong. So this goes in toward the cowl, and then the other side should go in toward the cowl, but I made the straight line here. I'm so close to being finished. So to make that mistake is annoying, and to pull out 4 rows is not a lot of rows, but I don't like to pull out knitting and then put the needle back in, or fuss with a lifeline or any of that kind of stuff. So in order to do that, or in order to avoid that, I would have to tink back 4 rows of 100-something stitches, which is also stupid. So I mean, I think I need to fix it. I could just kind of continue with the pattern and then just make it straight up here too, and not have, and only have this down here. I like it because it looks like kind of water, you know, the like a wave. So that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I just haven't decided how I'm going to fix it. Probably what I should do is, you know, pick up the row underneath of plain witchy brew, and then pull out the 4 black and just start again. And so that's what I'll do, unless I just can't stand it. So we'll see. But this is so close to being done. I've had a really fun time doing it. Totally looked forward to the pattern. It's utterly cute. Yeah. And it'll probably be pretty cozy. Here you go. Preview. Now on to a little more crochet before I get to my last and final work in progress that is a knit. So this is a work in progress that I've shown before. I think I showed it in episode 3, maybe. It is a blanket, and it is a crochet blanket, basically granny squares. They're not granny squares, but they're squares. It's a motif sewn together. I'm holding this. It's really big, and I'm kind of stuffing all the yarns that I'm working on because I'm using pretty much like almost all my blue acrylic yarns up. Again, for a stash buster. So I'm keeping this in my Coraline bag, which I love. And it's perfect because on the back, you've got the buttons and the needles for Coraline, obviously. If you've seen it, you know. And, but it's perfect for, you know, knitting or sewing or whatever projects. So I love it. Anyway, it's kind of oversized, for your typical knitting project bag, but like I said, I need it big because this is a blanket. So I've been, sorry, sneak preview there. So I've been working on the motifs, and I'd collected a number of them, and I wasn't sure how they were going to fit together or how I wanted to fit them together. And I wanted to start seeing it. I wanted to start seeing the blanket. I also I don't really know how many I need. I haven't really decided how big I'm going to make it. I thought maybe like queen or king size, but I might make it like throw size. I don't know. Depends on how badly I want to use all my blue yarns in this project. So we'll see. So I basically ended up sewing all the motifs I had together. So this is a huge mess because I haven't hidden any of the tails because I used them for sewing. But I've got basically a large, I guess it's a rectangle at this point. It's rather square. A large square rectangle to show you. And I am not really using any repeating pattern. I'm just sort of putting squares next to each other and kind of trying to get one of each in each row. However, whatever looks good. So it's somewhat random, I think. But I am really loving how it's turning out. So as you can see, I've used like 7 different yarns here, all in tones of blue. This is a really dark blue. This is like a gray blue. This is closer to a sky blue, and here's these turquoise. None of my blue Smurf DK got into this, of course, because these are all worsted. I am loving how this is turning out, and I'm going to keep going with it. Obviously, yarn can pill up. And that can make a blanket, you know, extra fuzzy. But the thing that I really like about yarn blankets is that they are really heavy. They're almost like a weighted blanket. When you wash it and then it relaxes. And when you're having it on you, it's seriously like it's not like a 15-pound weighted blanket, but you know, it feels like, I don't know, a 5-pounder or something. So it's super snuggly to cuddle under, especially if you have it like layered in between your other blankets. I made a really big Minecraft blanket for my daughter I don't know, a good 5 years ago or now or so. I'll pop a picture in. And that one she has not ever had off her bed since. You know, we want to keep it nice and so it'll last. And we have cats that like to jump on the bed and we don't want them to like snag and claw it and stuff. So it's sandwiched in between her other winter blankets. And so it just makes, again, like this cozy, cuddly layer that's really heavy. So I wanted that for my bed. So that's why I thought I'd make this, because it would be a really, like, you know, queen or king size bed. We have a king size bed. So I recently actually finished a project that was a sewing project, which was making a quilt out of some red plaid flannel sheets. Because I used to have a quilt like that and it got kind of destroyed by a tiny little kitten over time. So I had to make another one. So I just recently finished that. And so I've already got a big, heavy, snuggly blanket on my bed right now that I recently made. So anyway, I don't know how long this one will take me either. So why not one more blanket, right? We'll see. So this is the fire blanket. And that is by Sweet Crochetery. It's called the fire blanket because her style, or the way the color she did it in, kind of like fade from red to yellow, red, orange, and yellow. So I assume that's why it's called fire blanket. I just kind of decided more of a patchwork vibe, but really I chose it because I love the spirals. So next up is another crochet project. I'm getting all the little pieces here, mostly because it's that time of year again. And every holiday I end up making a lot of these, which are little Christmas bulbs. And so I make them in all different colors and string them together to make Christmas bulb garlands out of crochet. Now I actually have a pattern for this in my shop. I think it's called the Holiday Lights Garland. I'll obviously put a link down there. I use Caron Simply Soft Party yarn for most of them, but I also use Simply Soft Party doesn't have all the colors, like this perfect kind of like gold color. It doesn't have that. So this one, focus that. This one is Meri Maxim yarn. I forget the name of it. I'll put it down below if I remember, or put it in the captions or whatever. So I like them because they sparkle, and so it at least gives that kind of idea of like everything, you know, and the holiday season is very, you know, lit and warm and sparkly and glowy, so it kind of gives that vibe. Also, I don't know if you can see these stars back here, but that's also a garland that I like to make. That pattern is not mine. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I'll link it below because and put it here because I don't remember it. But I also like to make those kind of garlands, and it's had that same sparkly yarn in silver and gold colors. So I'm getting orders for those. So I like to save a lot of time during the holidays to fit those in because they are time consuming once you realize you want to have like 12 or 18 per strand. You know, it can kind of add up. So I think the last thing I'm going to show you is something that maybe you've been waiting for. I knew it would take me a long time to do, and I've started to do it again, started back into it. So it is kind of a work in progress because there's several pieces, and I just started on the second main piece. So that is, he's a little bit of a fright right now, but that is Toad. Toad is back. So this is actually not his mouth, it's the top of his head. That is a provisional cast on and will be, I'll probably do a 3-needle bind off on the inside. I think that's what I did before. Or a stitch it closed, either way, Kitchener stitch. So you can see when he stands out from the side, here's actually his mouth. And so his eyes will go up here, and that'll be the world's tiniest steek because I'll basically cut 2 stitches from each side and then sew the eyes in so they can kind of be inset a little bit. And that's what I did with Frog, who I'll show you again. So here he's got, does he have arms? Yeah, he has arms. He's got arms. So here is an arm opening, and then here, no, that's the mouth, I guess. So here's an arm opening. So I'll have to go back and pick up stitches for the arms. I'm almost done with the leg. Here's like, I've just got a few more rows left to do of this second foot. I'm using, I believe they're size 1 DPNs. Pretty much have to do DPNs on this the way the pattern is written. Maybe you could get away with magic loop. I don't know because I don't use it very much, so I haven't thought through the technicalities of that. But I'm using size 1 DPNs and will be throughout. So I'll have to get his arms done, and then I'll have to put in the eyes, and then I'll have to fill him. And when you fill these guys, you fill them with polyfill pellets. And, but you can see there's going to be all sorts of tiny little gaps and places that I will have to close up to make sure that it doesn't leak, because the polyfill pellets, will leak through any opening you have. So you want to do it over a tray or something to catch all of those. And that will tell you where to sew up those places. The pellets are worth it though. They give the toy a nice feel, a kind of a beanbag feel. It has a weight in your hand, and it's just, it's so worth it. It feels really good. So let me actually show you Frog again. For those of you who have seen previous episodes, you will have seen Frog, I think in episode 2 and episode 6 or something. So here is Frog. Good. And so you can see that's what they're going to look like. So back to back, the mouth kind of fills out a little bit when you get this jaw in, but then you fill him all up. His arms are quite low. So Frog is taller than Toad. So it'll kind of be more like that. And here's his little knees, which I have done. They kind of bounce in. So yeah, there's the two guys together. Of course, I'll have to do the little hands too. And there's a little, you can kind of see how he's got little fingers. So he's probably, I mean, halfway done when it's all said and done, just because of all the finishing I'll have to do on him. I already do have the eyes made. And for Toad, I made 4 eyes at the same time while I was doing, because I knew I would dread going back to it. These are tiny, and I did them out of crochet because it's much easier to do small circumference in crochet than in knit. Of course, the toy is knit. As I've said countless times before, I prefer to crochet toys rather than knit them, but the knit look just brings a special something too. And I was particular about these wanting these to be in knit, and I'm sure that the pattern's only written in knit. I can't recall, but I expect so. But these look really good in knit. There's a certain kind of, I want to say like vintage kind of vibe. Sometimes with toys that are knit versus crochet. And, you know, these are Frog and Toad from, what, the 70s? I don't even remember. Here's my copy of one of the books. Yeah, 1971. So just before I was born. So these, the vintage feel and the knit feel, I think, is extra perfect for this. So the yarn I'm using for both of these guys is just different colorways. I forget the Frog one, but Rolling Bales is the color for Toad. And it's kind of it's not quite a mustard yellow, but it's close. It's kind of like this spring green yellow, but really sort of dulled down. I think these colors are perfect, and I really worked extra hard to get the right color for Toad, because he's almost orange in the books when you look at it. Even though you get an impression it's kind of this like orangey green. When you just look at the color flat instead of what your mind expects a Toad to look like, it's pretty orangey yellow. So, so that's Rolling Bales, the colorway 9808. And I forget what Frog is, but I'll try and put it here or there or somewhere for you to see it. And as I've said, I've done Frog before. I've talked about Frog in a couple other episodes as well. So that is Nouveau Stolen Stitches yarn. It's a sport yarn. I believe it's got a linen content too, or maybe it's yak. So it has a really nice feel, and it's got a kind of a heathering that really gives a good dimension to the color on both of those. And a little bit of a halo fuzz. So it's just the cuddliest little toys to hold. So hopefully next time I show you Toad, he'll be done. And then I need to find, I need to do his clothes, especially, I mean, at the very least, I need them to each have one outfit, and Toad's got to have his swimsuit. It's too cute. So I'm going to be on the hunt for good colors to really color match some of their little outfits, which are also in the pattern. So that'll be really cool. So I might just show you him when he's done, and then we'll get to the clothes. We'll see when I'll revisit him. I'll at least finish the foot soon, I hope. So I hope I've covered everything. Like I said, life has been really, it's been up and down lately. So I recently took a trip to kind of get away, and I did intend to podcast from there, like I said, but the podcast part didn't work out. However, I got a lot of really great footage there, and so I want to show that to you at the end, including some fun Halloween footage and some footage of the town that the film Practical Magic was filmed in. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.